Hello my fellow pen enthusiasts, Aaron here with another pen review, and today we are taking a look at the Natami Inception fountain pen. Now this is a pen that Bobby Pens released on his Etsy site, and these pens are selling for around $20.50. They are available in different colors. As I'm recording this video, I think every color is still available right now. They've got some really attractive colors, green, red, blue, kind of a turquoise color. Of course, they have the clear versions like what I have here, and they also come in like a gold trim and then like the rose gold that you see here. So definitely check the pen out if it's something that interests you. Now, outside of that, I don't really see this pen available on a lot of other websites. Natami, I don't really know a ton of information about it. I do know that they have different inks that they also sell as well that are labeled Inception. I think there's about 10 of those inks. From what I can tell, when I took a look at the ink packaging as far as some images, it does say on the back of the inks that they're made in Tokyo, Japan. So I don't know if the fountain pen for sure is made there as well. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on that. If anyone does know for certain, definitely comment down below. All in all, let's just really talk about the pen. So the pen was received, no actual pen packaging other than I did get a nice little pen sleeve, kind of a leatherette type material here, and then kind of this textured, almost kind of mimics wool, so to speak, on this side. Nice little snap cap. Pen, of course, was packaged in a lot of bubble wrap, and didn't take a lot of time to get to my home. I think about 2 weeks, maybe a little less than that actually. So very quick delivery. Now I decided to go with the clear version with the rose gold trim. I thought it'd be kind of neat to be able to see all the mechanical pieces inside of the pen. There were other colors aesthetically that were extremely attractive. It was very hard, truthfully, picking a color. But I thought a clear one, I don't have a pen like this that's clear with this type of trim, so I thought it would be kind of nice and neat. Now, for those of you that don't know yet, this pen is faceted. So it's not just a regular, round pen. It actually has facets on it. So it's something that's different. Of course, this pen is, very reminiscent of a Platinum 3776 in a lot of ways. And I'll kind of show that. We can compare this a little bit to one of those pens. Now, starting up at the top on this cap finial, we've got a clear finial, but then on the inside, the piece that holds everything together as far as our cap line or our clip is rose gold. I like that touch, and you can tell it's a little bit faceted. I think it looks nice. We've got a nice, rose gold clip, very functional, nice and springy, not too tight. Now you'll see we've got a frosted inner cap. Would have been nice if that would have been completely clear, just so you can kind of see that nib a little bit better, but not necessarily a deal breaker. Now this is a spring-loaded inner cap, so very similar to what Platinum does with their slip and seal mechanism, where you've got a spring here, and as the section engages that inner cap, it kind of creates, I guess you could say, almost like an airtight seal. And what that will do or what it should be doing is keeping that nib from drying out. So say if you use this pen, you put it away in a drawer for several weeks, maybe even months, you pull the pen out, it should write as if you just inked up the pen. That's the idea behind it. Now I haven't done that yet, so I don't know if that's really going to be the case or not. Now I can kind of show you, so as we go to uncap this pen, we can see that spring actually start to move back down. And we can see, so here's our section, it's going to engage about right there, and then we see that spring and that cap kind of tightening up. Now I was expecting a lot more tension. For those of you that own a Platinum, generally you get a little bit of tension as you are, really torquing down. I say torquing, but basically recapping your pen. You do get a little bit of that tension in there. This pen, not as much. Now we've got a nice wide cap band here, and on the cap band it says Flight of Time, and then on the back it has what I'm assuming is a date, which is 1919. Now, I don't know what that date means for certain. I don't know, if that has anything to do with the manufacturer of this pin or whatnot. So I'm not going to claim to know what that date means, or heck, if it's even a model number. I don't know. So looking at our barrel, nice cigar or torpedo shaped barrel. Again, faceted though. I do like that design element with it. Now, as far as uncapping this pin, it takes about a little over 1 3/4 turns. So we're right at 1 3/4, and then it comes off. So almost exactly, just a little over. And then we see our section here. And the section is somewhat comparable to a platinum section. It's comfortable. There is a very slight step down right here. I wouldn't say it's overly sharp because it's not an extreme step down. The threads are machined nicely, so no real issues there. Section is rather comfortable, not too skinny, not too girthy, if that makes any sense. As far as how it fits in my hand, as most of you heard me say 1,000 times, I have fairly normal sized hands, but it fits nice in my web right here, so it's not uncomfortable. This is about how I hold the pin. Now, as far as the pin posting, it posts, but it doesn't post, if that makes it. It does not post deeply. It does not post very securely. If you really push it down on there, you can get it, but as it kind of sits in that webbing, it does come unposted. If you have extremely large hands, this might not be a pin that you'll enjoy using because it's not super elongated. Similar to a platinum, it's not, the body of it's not extremely large, and you can't really, in my opinion, post it comfortably. It's not a pin to me that's meant to be posted. Now, again, going back to the section, we do have that nice little flare out at the end. I do like that. Not a hourglass shape or anything like that, but it works. I think the nib is it's different. So we have Natami down the middle of it. This is a fine nib, and then of course it says the flight of time. But a different type nib. I don't have any issues with the design of this nib whatsoever. And then the back of it, we see a stamped feed, so definitely an injection molded feed. Now, one thing about this nib is, it's definitely a little bit different, and as you can tell, it looks to be as if it is a keyed nib. Now, of course, before I inked this pin up, I was excited to get it. I didn't take the nib and the feed out of the pin, but I could see this nib becoming a little bit of an issue as far as if you were wanting to change out the nib, for instance. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of nibs out there that are going to be easy to put into this pin. So just one thing to note, of course, there. Now, taking the barrel off, we've got a metal collar here. You've got just a regular standard converter here. It does have if I remember correctly, this had an ink agitator in there. I don't think you can see it very well because it's a really dark ink, but it did have an ink agitator in there. Just a converter. Nothing really super special about it. And all in all, that is the pin. I like the faceted design of the pin. Again, I'm going to bring in some different pins to do some sizing comparisons with them and just be able, and also to look at the sections as well as the nib. So I'll see you guys in a moment. All right, so we're back to do some sizing comparisons. Now, I tried to do several different cigar-shaped, torpedo-shaped fountain pens, and all of these are pretty well-known fountain pens. And so, but we'll go through the list just so everyone knows what we're looking at here. So, of course, the first one here, we have the Natami Inception. We have the Platinum 3776, which, these two pens, very, very similar to each other. We have the Pilot Metropolitan. We have the Moonman M100, and then we have a Pen BBS 266/308. This one's labeled as a 266, but basically same basic model as the 308. So looking at these pins, really from a sizing perspective, all very similar. You know, there's not a huge difference between the Platinum and the Natami. You can tell just slightly a little bit longer on the Natami fountain pen. Pilot Metropolitan, very similar overall in size. Girth between these two pins, somewhat similar. Obviously, design-wise, you can see some similarities between the two, but then there's also a lot of differences. You've got facets here, of course, just a regular round body. Obviously, our cap bands, very much different. I actually prefer the Natami cap band a little bit more, just my personal opinion. And then, of course, you know, you've got these two up here that are very different. Now, let's take a look at all of these pins and their uncapped form. So that way we can kind of compare nibs and sections, just to get an idea of how the Natami compares to some other popular fountain pens. All right, so here's kind of, you know, so now we see some differences in overall sizing. Now here is where the Natami and Platinum, from a sizing aspect, they kind of get more closely related. You can tell that the overall length of these two pins uncapped are much more similar. Whereas our Pilot Metropolitan, even our Moonman M100, and of course the 266/308 up top are a little bit longer in their overall. And I think out of these 5 pins, I would say this one is probably the most comfortable. Really, these two on top, for me personally, are the most comfortable to write with unposted. Just my own personal opinion. Now let's take a closer look at the nibs as well as the sections. So as far as sections and nib goes, so we'll notice that the Natami pen is somewhat similar to the Platinum. Now, of course, the Natami the section's a little bit larger than the Platinum section. The Pilot Metropolitan and the M100s, their section design characteristics are somewhat similar as far as it's just, you know, a simple concave section with a flare out at the end. The 266/308 definitely has, you know, a nice comfortable section that it uses, but I really think, you know, all of these pins are comfortable in their own way. I don't really have any issues with any of them. From a nib perspective, we've got a lot of different things going on here. Of course, Pin BBS, you know, they've got this is that standard silver upturned fine nib. This one is a number 5 nib that's in the M100. Right now there's a Bach nib in that one. Of course, Pilot has their own proprietary nibs as well as Platinum. Now this is just a steel Pilot fine nib, or I'm sorry, extra fine nib. And then this Platinum nib is a 14 karat gold broad. Very Platinum nibs, of course, for anybody that doesn't know, very unique nibs, nice wide shoulders. I think attractive nibs, different is definitely what I would say from an overall design viewpoint. And then the Natami kind of takes on its own mold as well. So kind of with those swirls and cuts into the nib, and also the size and shape of the nib is a little bit more unique comparatively speaking. You have a more standard nib up top. Of course, number 5, proprietary, and you could almost argue somewhat of a proprietary nib there with the Natami, which might be a detractor for some people as far as purchasing it. Now, I did want to show before we move on, so here is that slip and seal mechanism, as you can see in this Platinum pen. So same concept with this. When you go to actually cap the pin, we see about right there. The difference is you can really kind of feel it on the Platinum. When you start to torque it down, you get some resistance there. And it's really that last kind of quarter turn right here, and you see that spring engage. Overall, same design concept. I will say that I have inked up my Platinum pen and left it with ink in it for several months and not written with it, and went to pull it out and write with it, and it wrote beautifully. So at least from that perspective, hopefully you get the same concept with the Natami. Of course, I'm probably not planning on leaving my Natami uninked or inked up in a drawer for that length of time though. So up next, I will post some measurements and dimensions, and then of course we will do a writing sample. I'm not going to really show these pins in their posted form because this one to me is just not a pen that is comfortable posted. That's just my opinion, and that again might be a little bit of a detractor for you if you're someone that really has to post your pen. It can technically do it, but it's not a secure post. It just, again, it just kind of just sits there and doesn't really post extremely well. See you in a moment. So we are back for the writing sample. Sorry, I'm going to reposition the camera just a little bit better. I think my tripod is finally falling apart. All right, so this, of course, is the Natami Inception. Now, you notice there was a hard start there, and I'm not going to count that against the pen because I literally just recapped this pen from it being uncapped for quite a while and then went to do this writing sample. So I'm going to give it a pass because it was sitting uncapped for quite a while. Now, this again is a fine nib. And the ink that I'm using is Waterman. Absolute Brown. Just right underneath it. Oh, I just can't write. All right, we'll do a quick writing sample. So there you see the writing sample. I don't know, I inked this pen up with that ink, and I'm not a big fan of this Waterman ink. It's a little bit drier than I would like, and I don't think mixes very well with this pen. So I might try a different ink in this pen at some point. Not a pen that you're going to get really any line variation from necessarily. It is rather smooth. It's definitely a nail. I mean, it doesn't really open up at all. But I mean, it's a still nib, so I can't really have, you know, crazy expectations whatsoever, but not bouncy. It's not bouncy. Like I said, it's somewhat smooth. I you know, definitely not a ton of feedback. Wetness, do a wetness test. It's not bad. Again, this ink, I don't know if this ink and nib combination, nib feed combination are working very well. And that could be part of it. Reverse writing. Always forget to do this. It's a little scratchy, but it is definitely capable of doing some type of reverse writing. Definitely ultra extra fine there. Fast writing, you can do it. Little tiny bit of skipping. As you can see right there. Again, not the wettest. Now, what are my final thoughts about the pen? I like a lot of things about this pen. I like some of the design elements about this pen. I like the facets. It's a little bit different than you see on a lot of pens right now. I like some of those colors that are available. The price point is solid. I think for $20, you know, $25, not a bad price point. The nib doesn't wow me. And again, I'm trying to be subjective and not hypercritical about the nib because I do think part of it might be the ink that I'm using. And I definitely want to share that because I think it's fair to share. But the moment I inked this pen up and started writing with it, it didn't wow me. It didn't have that wow factor. I think $20 is a good price point though for this pen. And maybe if I had a different color or something, maybe I'd be a little bit more excited. I think one of the issues is it's hard nowadays to be as subjective because there are so many good fountain pens out there. But I don't want to be hypercritical of this pen. So, am I happy I bought it? Yes. The nib, again, is not crazy amazing. I wish it was a little bit more of a standard nib, but I get what they're trying to do with it. It will be nice to see if this pen company, if we see more of these pens. I think that they could have something really neat here. I would love to get my hands on some of their inks, but I do think that this is a cool pen. I don't know. I just think there's other pens that I get more excited to use. And I think that's kind of where I boil it down to. Like if I had a choice between this pen and say even this pen, which it has its flaws, I'm gonna go with this pen, or you know, potentially this pen. I'm probably gonna go with, say, a Pen BBS 308, and it's just my opinion. Take it or leave it, but I do like the pen all in all. I think if you're really into some of those colors, I don't think you'll be super disappointed if you purchase the pen. I think $20 is a good price point for it. That's all I have for this review. So everyone, please take care. I will see you later. Until next time, bye-bye.